Billionaire flaunt his mistress at company gala, unaware the new investor is his own wife. His voice cracked. Sweat beaded on his forehead under the hot stage lights. 300 pairs of eyes watched him like he was an animal in a cage. Garrison Thorne stood frozen at the microphone, staring at the woman walking toward him. The woman he never expected to see. The woman he had left at home. His wife. She stopped at the base of the stage steps. Her heels clicked once. Twice. 3 times as she ascended. She wore a suit that looked like it cost more than his car. Her hair was pulled back, so tight it could have been a weapon. And her eyes. God, her eyes were cold enough to freeze his blood. She reached for the microphone. He pulled it back. What are you doing here, Bellamy? His voice was a hiss, trying to keep it private, trying to salvage this. You're supposed to be at home. This is a business event. You don't belong here. She smiled. It was not a kind smile. Oh, Garrison. She said his name like it tasted bad. I belong here more than anyone in this room. The crowd murmured. Confused whispers rippled through the ballroom like a wave. He leaned closer, desperation creeping into his voice. Whatever you think you're doing, stop. You're embarrassing yourself. You're embarrassing me. Just go home, and we'll talk about this later. She took the microphone from his hand. He was too stunned to resist. Bellamy turned to face the audience. Good evening, everyone. My name is Bellamy Rose Cordell, though you may know me better as B.R. Cordell, founder and principal of Cordell Capital. The ballroom exploded. Gasps, shouts, chair scraping, journalists lunging for their phones. Garrison's world tilted. No, that's not possible. You're my wife. You don't even understand what I do. You organize charity luncheons. You read books. You don't run a billion-dollar company. She turned to him. For billion, actually. His knees buckled. And Garrison? The investment you've been so desperate for? The $300 million you thought would save your sinking company? She paused. Her smile widened. It was never coming. What? He whispered. I'm not here to invest in you. She leaned in close, so only he could hear. I'm here to destroy you. But to understand how we got to this moment, this beautiful, perfect moment of poetic justice, we need to rewind. Because this story, it didn't start tonight. It started 10 years ago, with a notebook, a betrayal, and a woman who decided that revenge is a dish best served cold. Very, very cold. So let me ask you something. Have you ever trusted someone completely, only to discover they saw you as nothing? Have you ever been so underestimated that people forgot you even had a brain? And if someone stole your life's work, built an empire on your genius, and then spent a decade mocking you for being too stupid to notice, what would you do? Would you scream? Would you sue? Would you walk away? Or would you do what Bellamy Cordell did? Disappear into the shadows. Build a weapon so powerful that when you finally stepped back into the light, you wouldn't just win. You'd erase him. Stick with me, because this story has everything. Betrayal. Brilliance. A mistress in a gold dress who's about to have the worst night of her life. And a takedown so calculated, so ruthless, so absolutely satisfying, that by the end, you're going to want to stand up and cheer. But before we get into it, if you love stories about karma, justice, and people getting exactly what they deserve, do me a favor. Hit that like button right now. And subscribe to Mr. Hearthline Stories, because we are just getting started. Make sure that notification bell is on, because trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. Alright, let's rewind. Let's go back to where this all began. The Grandshire Hotel Ballroom was a temple built for the worship of money. Crystal chandeliers the size of small cars hung from ceilings so high they could have housed angels. The marble floors were so polished you could see your reflection, and if you were one of the 300 guests here tonight, you liked what you saw. Tuxedos that cost $5,000. Gowns that would make a runway model weep. Champagne that was older than most of the waitstaff. This was the annual Thorne Dynamics Gala, the event of the season, the place where the elite came to see and be seen, to make deals and break competitors, to smile with veneered teeth and sharpen knives behind their backs. And at the center of it all, holding court like a king on a throne, was Garrison Thorne. He was 43, but he wore it well. Tall, broad-shouldered, with just enough silver in his dark hair to look distinguished instead of old. His tuxedo was custom, tailored in Milan by a man who had dressed presidents. His cufflinks were platinum. His watch was a limited edition Patek Philippe that cost more than most people's houses. His smile was the kind that had closed 1,000 deals and broken 100 hearts. He stood near the center of the ballroom, surrounded by a crowd of admirers, investors, journalists, CEOs who wanted a piece of whatever magic he was selling. And on his arm, like a trophy he had won, was Gemma Lake. She was 28, a full 15 years younger than Garrison. She had the kind of beauty that stopped traffic. Long legs poured into a dress the color of molten gold that clung to every curve and left very little to the imagination. Her honey blonde hair fell in perfect waves down her bare back. Her lips were painted red. Her laugh was bright and musical, but her eyes were sharp, calculating. She looked at Garrison like he was the only man in the room. She touched his arm when she laughed. She whispered in his ear. She played her role perfectly, because that's what this was. A role. Gemma Lake was not Garrison Thorne's wife. She was his mistress. Garrison's actual wife, Bellamy, was at home. He had told her this morning over coffee that the gala would be too intense for her. Too much business talk. Too many tech investors droning on about logistics models and market disruption. He had smiled that indulgent smile he always used with her and patted her hand. Why don't you have a relaxing night, sweetheart? Maybe catch up on your book club reading. Order some takeout. I'll be home late. And Bellamy, sweet, soft-spoken Bellamy, had smiled back and said, "Of course, Garrison. You know best." He did know best. He always had. A waiter appeared with a tray of champagne. Garrison took 2 glasses and handed one to Gemma. "To the future," he said, raising his glass. She clinked hers against his. "To us." They drank. The champagne was perfect. Everything tonight was perfect. Because tonight was the night that Garrison Thorne ascended to the next level. Tonight, he was meeting with representatives from Cordell Capital, one of the most powerful and mysterious private equity firms in the country. They were about to inject $300 million into Thorne Dynamics. $300 million. With that kind of capital, he would be untouchable. He could expand into new markets, buy out his competitors, finally silence the board members who had been questioning his spending. He would be a king. No, a god. Gemma leaned close, her perfume wrapping around him. "Are you nervous?" "Nervous?" Garrison laughed. "Baby, I was born for this. This is my night." "And her?" Gemma's voice dropped. "Your wife?" Garrison waved a dismissive hand. "Bellamy doesn't even know what Thorne Dynamics does. I've tried to explain it to her. Predictive AI logistics, supply chain optimization." Her eyes glaze over. "She thinks I work with computers. That's it. Just computers." Gemma smiled, but there was something predatory in it. "Poor thing. She has no idea what she has. She never did." Garrison's voice was casual, careless. "That's why after tonight, after I lock this deal, I'm finally going to do it. I'm going to tell her I want a divorce." Gemma's eyes lit up. "Really? Really?" He pulled her closer. "You and I can stop hiding. I'll set her up with something, enough to keep her comfortable. She'll probably be relieved, honestly. She never wanted this life anyway." What Garrison didn't know, what he couldn't have known because he had never bothered to really look at his wife, was that every word he just said was being recorded, not by some tabloid journalist or vengeful rival, but by the security system in the ballroom. A security system that had been quietly upgraded 3 months ago. A security system that was owned and operated by a company called Cordell Security Solutions, a subsidiary of Cordell Capital, which was owned by his wife. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Garrison drained his champagne and checked his watch. The Cordell Capital representatives were supposed to arrive at 8:30. It was 8:15. He had 15 minutes to work the room, shake the right hands, remind everyone why he was the most important man here. "Come on," he said to Gemma. "Let's make the rounds." They moved through the ballroom like celebrities. People parted for them. Hands reached out to shake Garrison's. Voices called his name. A tech journalist from Forbes stopped him for a quick quote. A senator's aide asked for a meeting. A venture capitalist slapped him on the back and said, "You brilliant bastard, you've done it again." Garrison soaked it all in. This was his element. This was where he belonged. What he didn't see, because he was too busy looking at his own reflection in the eyes of his admirers, was the woman standing in the shadows near the service entrance. She wore a simple black dress. Her dark hair was pulled back in a loose bun. She had a tablet in her hands and an earpiece in her ear. She looked like event staff. Forgettable. Invisible. Her name was Harriet Voss. She was not event staff. She was the head of acquisitions for Cordell Capital, and she was watching Garrison Thorne the way a hawk watches a rabbit. In her ear, a voice crackled. Status? Harriet spoke quietly into a microphone hidden in her collar. Target is mobile, accompanied by secondary target, Gemma Lake. Confidence level is high. Arrogance level is higher. The voice in her ear was cool, calm, and female. Good. Is everything in place? Security team is ours. Cameras are live. Evidence files are compiled. Legal is standing by. We're green across the board. Excellent. The voice paused. How does he look? Harriet allowed herself a small, cold smile. Like a man who has no idea he's already dead. Perfect. I'm 10 minutes out. The line went silent. Harriet slipped the tablet under her arm and disappeared back into the shadows. Across town, in a penthouse that overlooked the glittering sprawl of the city, a woman stood in front of a full-length mirror. The penthouse was massive. 8,000 square feet of glass, steel, and silence. Minimalist furniture. Expensive art on the walls. Floor-to-ceiling windows that made you feel like you were floating above the world. This was the home Bellamy Thorne shared with her husband. Though shared was a generous word, Garrison barely noticed her. He lived in the gym, the office, the car. She lived in the spaces he didn't care about. Like the small office at the end of the hall. He called it her hobby room. She called it her war room. Bellamy stood in front of the mirror now, but she wasn't in the penthouse anymore. She was in the office. The door was locked. The blinds were drawn. And she was no longer wearing the soft cashmere lounge set she'd had on when Garrison left this morning. She was wearing armor. A suit. Midnight blue, so dark it was almost black. Tailored to perfection. Sharp lines. No softness. The jacket fit like it had been built around her. The pants fell in a perfect break over black heels that could double as weapons. Her hair, usually worn loose and soft around her shoulders, was pulled back into a bun so tight and sleek it looked like it had been painted on. She wore no jewelry except for one piece. A signet ring on her right hand. Heavy. Gold. Engraved with a single letter. C. For Cordell. Bellamy stared at her reflection. She barely recognized herself. The woman in the mirror was not the woman Garrison Thorne had left at home. That woman was soft. Quiet. Passive. This woman was a predator. Her phone buzzed on the desk. She picked it up. A text from Quentin Ashby, her lead attorney. All systems go. Harriet is on site. Security is ours. The files are ready. We're just waiting for you. She typed back. I'm on my way. Another text, this one from her driver. Car is downstairs, Miss Cordell. Miss Cordell, not Mrs. Thorne. She preferred it that way. Bellamy took one last look in the mirror. She thought about the woman she used to be. The woman who had trusted a man with her whole heart. The woman who had shown him her life's work because she thought they were partners. The woman who had been betrayed. That woman was gone. In her place stood Bellamy Rose Cordell, founder of Cordell Capital, for $1 billion in assets under management. One of the most feared and respected investors in the country. A ghost. A phantom. No one knew her face. No one knew her name. Until tonight. Tonight, the phantom became real. And Garrison Thorne's entire world was about to burn. She grabbed her bag, a sleek leather portfolio, and walked out of the office. The hallway was long and silent. Her heels clicked against the hardwood like a countdown. She passed the living room where she and Garrison used to have coffee in the mornings, back when he still pretended to care. She passed the kitchen where she had cooked dinners he never came home to eat. She walked out the front door and didn't look back. The elevator ride down from the penthouse took 45 seconds. She counted every one. When the doors opened, her driver was waiting. He was a tall man in a crisp black suit, ex-military, the kind of person who could kill you with a ballpoint pen and make it look like an accident. Good evening, Miss Cordell. Good evening, Thomas. He opened the door to the Blacktown car. She slid into the back seat. The leather was cool against her skin. The cabin smelled like new money. Thomas got into the driver's seat. The Grandshire Hotel? Yes. He pulled into traffic. The city slid past outside the window. Lights. Buildings. People living their small, ordinary lives. She used to be one of them. Now she was something else. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a call. She answered. Bellamy Cordell. The voice on the other end was clipped and professional. Miss Cordell, this is Robert Chin from our media relations team. Just confirming, you're prepared for the exposure tonight? Once you reveal yourself as Br Cordell, the press will be relentless. I'm prepared. And you're certain you want to proceed? Once this is done, there's no going back. Bellamy looked out the window. The city lights blurred into streaks. There was never any going back, Robert. Not after what he did. Understood. We'll have a press team standing by. Good luck tonight, Miss Cordell. She hung up. The car pulled up to the Grandshire Hotel 20 minutes later. The entrance was chaos. Red carpet. Velvet ropes. Photographers shouting. Valets running. Guests stepping out of limousines and Bentleys. Waving, smiling, preening. Thomas stopped the car away from the entrance, in the shadows near the service door. This is your stop, Miss Cordell. Thank you, Thomas. He got out and opened her door. She stepped onto the pavement. The night air was cool. She could hear the commotion at the front entrance, but back here, it was quiet. Harriet Voss appeared from the service door. She looked exactly the same as always. Severe, focused, lethal. Miss Cordell. Harriet. They shook hands. Is he inside? Bellamy asked. Center of the ballroom. Holding court. The mistress is with him. He's been drinking champagne and telling anyone who'll listen how brilliant he is. Bellamy's jaw tightened. How does he look? Harriet smiled. Like a man on top of the world. Good. Bellamy straightened her jacket. Let's knock him off. They walked through the service entrance, down a hallway lined with catering staff and event coordinators who didn't give them a second glance. Harriet led her to a private room just off the main ballroom. Inside, Quentin Ashby was waiting. Quentin was 52, lean, silver-haired, with eyes like a shark. He had been Bellamy's lead counsel for 8 years. He had never lost a case. Bellamy. He nodded. You look ready for war. Because I am. He opened a leather briefcase and pulled out a stack of folders. Everything is here. The financial records. The evidence of embezzlement. The offshore accounts. The video recordings. The prenuptial agreement. He paused. And the divorce papers. Bellamy took the divorce papers. She stared at them for a long moment. 10 years. Quentin's voice was gentle. You don't have to do this. We can handle the business side and let the personal side wait. No. She looked up. He needs to lose everything tonight. The company. The reputation. The money. And me. He needs to understand that I was never his. I was always mine. Quentin nodded. Then let's go make history. Harriet checked her watch. Garrison is about to take the stage. He's going to announce the investment and introduce you. Well, introduce Br Cordell. He still has no idea. Bellamy almost laughed. After all this time, after building a $4 billion empire, he still thinks I spend my days organizing his sock drawer. That's the beauty of it, Harriet said. He underestimated you so completely that he never thought to ask questions. Even when Cordell Capital reached out. Even when we offered him a lifeline. He never once wondered who Br Cordell was. Arrogance is a hell of a drug, Quentin said. Bellamy walked to the door that led to the main ballroom. She could hear the music, the laughter, the clinking of glasses. On the other side of that door was her husband, the man she had loved, the man who had stolen from her, the man who had spent a decade making her feel small. Tonight, he would learn what small really felt like. She turned to Harriet and Quentin. Are we ready? They both nodded. Then let's go. Inside the ballroom, Garrison Thorne was on stage. A microphone in his hand. A spotlight on his face. 300 people watching him like he was a messiah. He felt invincible. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here tonight. His voice boomed across the room, smooth and confident. Thorne Dynamics has always been about one thing. Innovation. We don't follow trends. We create them. Applause rippled through the crowd. He fed off it like oxygen. Gemma stood at the edge of the stage, beaming at him like he had just invented fire. And tonight, Garrison continued, I'm thrilled to announce a historic partnership. Cordell Capital, one of the most respected and powerful private equity firms in the world, is investing $300 million into Thorne Dynamics. The ballroom erupted. Gasps. Cheers. Champagne glasses raised. Camera flashes popping like fireworks. Garrison grinned. He had them. They were eating out of his hand. Now, he said, holding up a hand for silence. Br Cordell is notoriously private. In fact, no one in this room has ever met the principal of Cordell Capital. But tonight, for the first time in the firm's history, Br Cordell has agreed to join us. The crowd murmured. Excited. Curious. Garrison turned toward the back of the ballroom, where the grand double doors stood closed. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Br Cordell. The doors opened. Every head in. The ballroom turned. Garrison's smile was wide, expectant, confident. And then she walked in. Bellamy Cordell. Midnight blue suit. Severe bun. Red lipstick. Heels that clicked like a judge's gavel. She walked down the center aisle. Every eye was on her. Confused whispers started immediately. Wait, is that Bellamy Thorne? Garrison's wife? What is she doing here? Garrison's smile didn't fade at first. His brain couldn't process what his eyes were seeing. It was like looking at a familiar painting and realizing all the colors were wrong. Bellamy? His voice cracked, just a little. What are you doing here? She didn't answer. She just kept walking. Steady. Unwavering. She reached the stage. Climbed the steps. Stopped 3 feet from him. Up close, under the lights, he could see that this was not his wife. Not the woman he knew. This woman was a stranger. Hello, Garrison, she said. Her voice was calm. Cold. He grabbed her arm, trying to pull her aside, away from the microphone. What the hell are you doing? You're supposed to be at home. This is embarrassing. Just go, and we'll talk later. She looked down at his hand on her arm, then back up at his face. Let go of me. Something in her voice made him obey. His hand dropped. Bellamy turned to face the crowd. She reached for the microphone. He tried to hold on to it, but she took it anyway. Good evening, everyone. Her voice carried across the silent ballroom. My name is Bellamy Rose Cordell. You may know me better as Br Cordell, founder and principal of Cordell Capital. The silence shattered. The ballroom exploded into chaos. Journalists lunged for their phones. Guests shouted questions. Cameras flashed. Garrison felt the floor tilt beneath him. No. His voice was a whisper. No, that's not possible. She turned to him. For $1 billion, Garrison. That's what Cordell Capital is worth. For $1 billion. Built from the $50,000 inheritance you laughed at. You don't, he stammered. You can't. You're just my wife. You don't even understand business. Behind her, the massive screen that had been displaying the Thorne Dynamics logo flickered. It changed to show an image. A photograph of a notebook. Pages filled with complex equations, diagrams, algorithms. In the corner, in neat handwriting, it said property of Bellamy Cordell, MIT, 2014. The crowd gasped. This, Bellamy said, turning back to the microphone, is my work. My algorithm. The foundation of Thorne Dynamics. That's a lie, Garrison shouted. I built this company from nothing. You built it from my nothing, Bellamy corrected. You stole my intellectual property. You pitched it as your own. You used my genius to build your empire. And then you spent 10 years telling me I didn't have one. 2 people walked onto the stage. A tall, severe woman in a charcoal suit. A lean man with silver hair and shark eyes. Mr. Thorne, the woman said. Her voice was dry and sharp. I'm Harriet Voss, head of acquisitions for Cordell Capital. This is Quentin Ashby, general counsel. Garrison looked at them. Looked at Bellamy. Looked at the 300 faces staring at him. This is insane. His voice was rising, panicked. You're all insane. This is a setup. No, Mr. Thorne, Quentin said calmly. This is an audit. The screen changed again. Now it showed financial documents. Bank statements. Wire transfers. Over the past 18 months, Harriet said, Cordell Capital has conducted extensive due diligence on Thorne Dynamics. We found significant irregularities. Irregularities? Garrison tried to laugh. It came out like a cough. Embezzlement, Harriet continued. Specifically, $12 million diverted from company funds to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. Accounts used to purchase luxury real estate, vehicles, and various personal expenses. Gemma, still standing at the edge of the stage, went pale. The screen changed again. Now it showed a property listing. A sleek, modern condo in West Hollywood. This property, Quentin said, was purchased 6 months ago for $1.2 million. It was expensed as a corporate retreat space. But our investigators found that it's occupied by Miss Gemma Lake. His eyes flicked to Gemma, who is, as far as we can tell, not a corporate asset. Gemma looked like she wanted the floor to open up and swallow her. Garrison's collar felt too tight. He pulled at it, gasping. You can't just come in here and accuse me. I'll sue you. I'll bury you. With what money? Bellamy asked. Her voice was almost gentle, almost pitying. Garrison, your company is insolvent. You're hemorrhaging cash. Your bridge loans are being called in 72 hours. No. He shook his head violently. No, that's not true. The Cordell investment, the $300 million, that's going to save everything. Bellamy smiled. There is no investment, Garrison. What? I'm not here to save you. She stepped closer. I'm here to destroy you. The screen changed one more time. Now it showed a video. Garrison, sitting in his office. Gemma perched on the edge of his desk. The date stamp in the corner read 3 weeks ago. Video. Garrison was laughing. She's got no idea, Bellamy. Seriously, no idea. Gemma's voice. What do you mean? I mean, the algorithm that built this whole company? It was hers. From some college project. She showed it to me years ago. I took it, cleaned it up, and pitched it as mine. And she never even figured it out. I've told the story so many times, I almost believe it myself. The ballroom was dead silent. Present-day Garrison looked like he'd been punched in the stomach. But that's taken out of context, he stammered. There's more, Bellamy said. The video continued. Video. Garrison leaned back in his chair. Once I get the Cordell money, I'm divorcing her. She'll get nothing. The prenup makes sure of that. Everything's in my name. Video. Gemma kissed him. You're so smart, baby. Video. Garrison grinned. I know. The video stopped. The real Gemma, standing on stage, looked like she was about to faint. The real Garrison couldn't speak. His mouth opened and closed like a fish. Bellamy turned to face the crowd. For 10 years, I played the role he wanted. The quiet wife. The woman who didn't understand his genius. But the truth is, I understood perfectly. I understood that the only way to beat a man like Garrison Thorne was to let him think he'd already won. She turned back to him. So I disappeared. I built Cordell Capital in secret. I used my maiden name. I operated through proxies. And I waited. For what? Garrison whispered. For this. She gestured to the ballroom. The cameras. The witnesses. For the moment when I could take back everything you stole. In front of everyone. Now, real quick, let me pause the story right here, because I need you to understand what just happened. Bellamy Cordell didn't just embarrass her husband. She annihilated him. In front of 300 of the most powerful people in the industry. On camera. With evidence so airtight that he can't spin it, can't deny it, can't escape it. And we're not even at the best part yet. If you're loving this, if you're Team Bellamy all the way, do me a favor right now. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Shout out your city, your country, or just say I'm with you, Mr. Hearthline. I read every single comment, and I want to know you're out there. Alright, let's get back to it, because Garrison's nightmare is just beginning. Garrison Thorne was not a man who accepted defeat. He had spent his entire adult life bending the world to his will. Charm. Manipulation. Intimidation. Whatever worked. And right now, backed into a corner, he defaulted to what he knew best. Rage. You. He pointed at Bellamy, his face red, his voice shaking. You set me up. You've been planning this. You're insane. I'm thorough, Bellamy corrected. This is illegal, he shouted. Entrapment. Fraud. I'll have you arrested. Quentin Ashby stepped forward. Mr. Thorne, everything Miss Cordell has done is entirely legal. Cordell Capital is a registered private equity firm. The due diligence we conducted is standard practice. The evidence we've compiled was obtained through legal means. You, on the other hand, she gestured to the screen, have committed multiple federal crimes. I haven't done anything wrong, Garrison snapped. The screen flickered again. This time it showed bank statements. Highlighted lines showing transfers. $12 million. Moved in small increments over 2 years. From Thorne Dynamics accounts to offshore shell companies. Then from those shell companies to personal accounts in Garrison's name. Harriet Voss spoke. These transactions, Mr. Thorne, constitute embezzlement. You diverted company funds, funds that belong to your investors and your employees, for personal use. That's not embezzlement. That's salary. Bonuses. Did your board of directors approve these bonuses? Silence. Did your shareholders? More silence. Then it's embezzlement, Harriet said simply. Garrison turned to the crowd, desperate now. You all know me. You know what I've built. This woman, my wife, she's trying to ruin me because she's jealous. She's always been jealous of my success. A voice from the crowd, one of the investors. Garrison, is it true? Did you steal her algorithm? No. Yes. I mean, it was a collaboration. We were married. What's mine is hers. What's hers is mine. Bellamy laughed. It was a cold, bitter sound. What's mine is yours. Really, Garrison? Is that why you made me sign a prenuptial agreement that specified all assets acquired individually during the marriage remain the sole property of that individual? His face went white. She pulled a document from her portfolio, held it up. You were very insistent on that clause, remember? You told me it was to protect your future earnings. You didn't want me to have any claim to Thorn Dynamics. The crowd murmured. That prenup, Bellamy continued, works both ways. Thorn Dynamics is yours. Built on stolen work, but legally yours. And Cordell Capital? She smiled. All $4 billion? That's mine. Built with my inheritance, my intelligence, my work. You have no claim to it. Garrison's legs felt weak. He grabbed the edge of the podium to steady himself. But here's the part you're really going to hate, Bellamy said. Thorn Dynamics is going bankrupt. No. Yes. Your bridge loans are due in 72 hours. You can't pay them. You've been using new debt to pay old debt, and the house of cards is collapsing. I'll get new investors, he said desperately. Who? Bellamy gestured to the crowd. Everyone here just watched you confess to embezzlement on video. Everyone here knows your company is built on stolen IP. Who exactly do you think is going to write you a check? Silence. When you file for bankruptcy, Bellamy continued, Cordell Capital will be at the auction. We're going to purchase Thorn Dynamics assets. Specifically, the algorithm. My algorithm. We're bringing it home. Garrison felt like he was drowning. You can't do this. I already have. He looked out at the crowd. At the investors who had once courted him. At the journalists who had once written glowing profiles. At the colleagues who had once envied him. Now they looked at him like he was a criminal. Somebody help me, he said, his voice cracking. Somebody. No one moved. Gemma, still frozen at the edge of the stage, finally tried to leave. She took a step toward the stairs. Miss Lake, Harriet's voice was sharp. Please don't leave. You're a material witness. Gemma stopped. Turned. I didn't know. I swear. I didn't know any of this. You didn't know about the embezzlement? Harriet raised an eyebrow. Even though he purchased a $1.2 million condominium for you with stolen money? I thought it was a bonus. A bonus, Harriet repeated flatly. Quentin stepped forward. Miss Lake, you have two options. You can leave now, and we'll file charges against you as an accessory to felony embezzlement. Or you can cooperate with our investigation and the federal authorities. Federal authorities? Gemma's voice was a squeak. The IRS and the SEC are very interested in Mr. Thorne's offshore accounts. Gemma looked at Garrison, the man she had adored, the man she had thought would make her rich and powerful. He looked back at her with pure hatred. This is your fault. You and your expensive taste. I never should have gotten involved with you. Her face hardened. She turned to Quentin. I'll cooperate. I'll tell you everything. Garrison lunged at her. You backstabbing little. Security appeared. Two large men in dark suits. They grabbed Garrison's arms, holding him back. Let me go, he roared. Mr. Thorne, Quentin said calmly. I'd advise you to stop making this worse for yourself. Garrison was breathing hard. Sweating. His perfect tuxedo was rumpled. His perfect hair was falling into his face. His perfect life was in ruins. He looked at Bellamy. Really looked at her. Why? He asked. His voice was broken. Why did you do this? She met his eyes. For the first time, he saw something in them he'd never noticed before. Pain. Old pain. You want to know why? She asked. 10 years ago, I loved you. I trusted you. I showed you my work because I thought we were partners. Bellamy. And you stole it. You took the thing I was most proud of, and you made it yours. You built an empire on my back, and then you spent a decade telling me I was too stupid to understand what you did. That's not. You mocked me, Garrison. To your mistress. To your colleagues. You called me boring. Passionless. You said I had nothing going on in my head. She stepped closer. So I decided to show you exactly what's in my head. The ballroom was silent. Transfixed. I spent 10 years building Cordell Capital, Bellamy said. 10 years becoming more successful, more powerful, more respected than you ever were. And you never noticed. Because you never looked. You were so busy staring at your own reflection, you never saw me. I loved you, he whispered. No, you didn't. You loved what I could give you. And when you'd taken it all, you threw me away. She pulled another document from her portfolio. These are divorce papers. You'll be served officially tomorrow morning. But I wanted you to know tonight. She dropped the papers on the podium in front of him. You'll get nothing in the divorce, she continued. The prenup you designed makes sure of that. The house is mortgaged. The cars are leased. Your personal accounts are empty. When Thorn Dynamics goes bankrupt, you'll lose everything. He stared at the divorce papers. His hands shook. Everything except your debt to the IRS, Bellamy added. That, you get to keep. Garrison looked up at her. Tears were streaming down his face now. Tears of rage. Of self-pity. You're a monster, he said. No, Bellamy replied. I'm just someone who got tired of being invisible. She turned and walked off the stage. Quentin and Harriet followed her. The ballroom erupted. Journalists shouting questions. Guests talking over each other. Cameras flashing. Garrison stood alone on the stage. The spotlight still on him. But now it felt like an interrogation light. Security escorted him off the stage. Out a side door. Away from the chaos. Gemma was already gone, whisked away by Harriet and a team of lawyers. And just like that, it was over. Garrison Thorne's empire, built on stolen brilliance and propped up by lies, collapsed in the span of 20 minutes. But for Bellamy Cordell, it was just beginning. She walked out of the Grandshire Hotel through the same service entrance she'd come in. No red carpet. No photographers. Just her, Quentin, and Harriet, walking into the cool night air. Thomas was waiting with the car. How do you feel? Quentin asked. Bellamy considered the question. She thought she'd feel triumphant. Vindicated. But mostly, she just felt tired. Ask me tomorrow, she said. She got into the car. Quentin and Harriet went to their own vehicles. Thomas pulled into traffic. Bellamy looked out the window. The city lights blurred past. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. She opened it. You destroyed him. She didn't recognize the number, but she knew who it was. One of the guests. One of the witnesses. She typed back. No, I freed myself. She put the phone down and closed her eyes. Tomorrow, the press would have a field day. Tomorrow, the SEC would open their investigation. Tomorrow, Garrison's life would continue its free fall. But tonight, for the first time in 10 years, Bellamy Cordell could breathe. She had spent a decade in the shadows, invisible, underestimated, dismissed. Not anymore. Now, the world knew her name, and they would never forget it. The car ride back to the penthouse took 20 minutes, but for Bellamy, it felt like 20 seconds. Her mind was racing, replaying every moment of the night. Garrison's face when he saw her. The gasps from the crowd. The look of absolute devastation when he realized he'd been beaten by the woman he'd dismissed as nothing. She should feel satisfied. She should feel victorious. But instead, she felt hollow. Thomas pulled up to the building. Miss Cordell, we've arrived. Thank you, Thomas. She stepped out of the car. The doorman nodded at her. Good evening, Mrs. Thorne. She paused. Actually, it's Miss Cordell now. The doorman blinked, confused, but nodded. Of course. Miss Cordell. She rode the elevator up to the penthouse. The doors opened directly into the apartment. The lights were off. The space was silent and cold. This had been her prison for 10 years. A gilded cage made of glass and lies. Tomorrow, she'd start looking for a new place. Somewhere that was actually hers. Somewhere Garrison had never touched. But tonight, she just needed to sleep. She walked to her office. The one room that had always been hers. She sat down at her desk and opened her laptop. Her inbox was already exploding. Emails from journalists. Requests for interviews. Messages from other investors. And one email that stood out from the rest. The sender was listed as a friend. She opened it. What you did tonight was extraordinary. But be careful. Men like Garrison Thorne don't go down without a fight. Watch your back. There was no signature. Bellamy stared at the email for a long moment. Then she deleted it. She didn't need warnings. She'd been preparing for war for 10 years. Whatever Garrison tried next, she'd be ready. She shut the laptop and leaned back in her chair. For the first time since this whole thing started, she let herself remember how it had all begun. 10 years ago, Bellamy had been 24, fresh out of MIT with a master's degree in computer science and a head full of revolutionary ideas. She'd spent her final year developing something that could change entire industries. A predictive algorithm that could optimize supply chain logistics in real time, adjusting for variables like weather, political instability, traffic patterns, and consumer behavior. It was elegant. It was brilliant. It was worth billions. She'd met Garrison at a networking event in Boston. He was getting his MBA, charming and ambitious, with big dreams and no money. He'd approached her at the bar, bought her a drink, and spent 2 hours asking her about her work. She'd thought he was genuinely interested. She'd thought he saw her. They started dating. Within 6 months, they were inseparable. He told her she was brilliant. He told her she was going to change the world. He told her he loved her. And she believed him. One night, about 8 months into their relationship, they were at her apartment. She was working on her thesis, the algorithm, and he'd asked to see it. "Show me what you're working on. I want to understand." She'd hesitated. It wasn't finished. It was still rough, still needed refinement. But he'd smiled at her with those warm eyes and said, "I just want to be part of your world, Belle." So she'd shown him the notebook, the code, the entire framework. He'd looked at it for a long time. Then he'd kissed her and said, "You're going to be a legend." 2 months later, her father died. A sudden heart attack. She'd flown home to Seattle for the funeral, devastated, barely able to function. Garrison stayed in Boston. Said he had meetings he couldn't miss. She was gone for 2 weeks. When she came back, Garrison picked her up from the airport with flowers and apologies. "I'm so sorry I couldn't be there, Belle. But I have news. Good news. I think it'll cheer you up." "What news?" "I pitched a business idea to some investors. They loved it. They want to fund it. We're talking serious money. This could change our lives." She'd smiled, trying to be happy for him through her grief. "That's amazing, Garrison. What's the idea?" He'd explained it to her. A logistics company using predictive AI to optimize supply chains. Her smile had frozen. "Wait, that sounds like my algorithm." He'd laughed. "Well, yeah. You inspired me, babe. I took your concept and built a business model around it. It's going to be huge. You took my concept?" He'd squeezed her hand. "Don't worry. Once we're married, it'll be ours together. What's mine is yours, right?" She'd felt like the ground was falling out from under her. "Garrison, that's my thesis. My work. You can't just take it." His smile had faded. "Belle, come on. Don't be like this. You showed it to me. You wanted my input. I'm just trying to make something of it. You weren't going to do anything with it anyway. You're brilliant at the theory, but you don't know business. I do. I wasn't going to do anything with it." She'd pulled her hand away. "Garrison, I was planning to patent it. To build my own company." He'd sighed like she was being difficult. "Look, the investors already cut the check. The contracts are signed. It's done. But this is good for both of us. I'll make us rich. You'll see." She'd stared at him, really looked at him. And for the first time, she saw what he actually was. Not a partner. A thief. But what could she do? He was right. The contracts were signed. The money was in motion. If she fought him publicly, it would turn into a he said, she said situation. She had her notebooks, but he had investors who believed in him. And she was exhausted, grieving, barely holding herself together. So she'd made a choice. A calculated choice. She didn't fight him. She smiled. She congratulated him. She played the supportive girlfriend. And when he proposed 3 months later, she said yes. Everyone told her how lucky she was. Garrison Thorne was going places. He was going to be a titan of industry. And she got to be by his side. They got married in a small ceremony. Right before the wedding, his lawyer had presented her with a prenuptial agreement. "It's just a formality," Garrison had said, "to protect both of us." She'd read it carefully. The language was clear. Any assets acquired individually during the marriage would remain the sole property of that individual. He'd designed it to protect Thorne Dynamics from her. She'd signed it without argument. Because even then, even in the early days of her heartbreak, a plan was forming. 3 months after the wedding, her father's estate was settled. She inherited $50,000. Garrison had laughed when she told him, "That's cute, Belle. Why don't you let me invest it for you? Put it into Thorne Dynamics. We'll grow it together." "No," she'd said sweetly. "I think I'll keep it separate. Maybe dabble in the stock market. It'll be my little hobby." He'd patted her head. "Sure, babe. Whatever makes you happy." He thought she was playing. Thought she'd lose it all in a few bad trades and come crying to him. He was wrong. Bellamy had taken that $50,000 and started studying. She read everything she could about investing, venture capital, private equity. She opened accounts under her maiden name, Cordell. She made small, careful investments. And she started winning. A tech startup that went public and tripled her money. A pharmaceutical company whose drug trials she'd researched obsessively. A real estate opportunity in an up-and-coming neighborhood. Within 2 years, she'd turned $50,000 into $500,000. Within 5 years, 5 million. Within 8 years, 500 million. She operated in complete secrecy. Shell companies, offshore accounts, trusted proxies. She hired Quentin Ashby, a ruthless lawyer who asked no questions and won every case. She brought on Harriet Voss, a financial shark who could smell blood in the water from a mile away. She built an empire in the shadows while her husband built his empire in the spotlight on her stolen work. And she watched him. She watched him take credit for her genius. Watched him give TED Talks about innovation. Watched him appear on magazine covers as the next Steve Jobs. She watched him start to believe his own hype. And she watched him start to resent her. Because Garrison Thorne needed to be worshipped. And Bellamy, who knew the truth, couldn't worship him. She could only watch him with quiet, knowing eyes. It drove him crazy. He started criticizing her. Little digs at first. You're so quiet at these events, Belle. Can't you try to be more engaging? People think you're boring. Then bigger cuts. I don't know why I bother explaining my work to you. You just don't get it. And finally, the cruelest ones. Sometimes I wonder if there's anything going on in that head at all. She took it all. Absorbed it. Let him think she was too dumb to be hurt. But every insult was a nail in his coffin. Every dismissive comment was more fuel for her fire. And then, 3 years ago, Gemma Lake had walked into Thorne Dynamics as a junior marketing assistant. Bellamy had known immediately. She'd seen the way Garrison looked at Gemma, the way he laughed too loud at her jokes, the way he found excuses to work late. She'd hired a private investigator. Within a month, she had proof. Photos of them at hotels, transcripts of phone calls, bank statements showing gifts and trips. She'd compiled it all in a file, put it in a safe, and waited, because she didn't just want to catch him cheating. She wanted to destroy him completely. 18 months ago, she'd started phase 2 of her plan. Cordell Capital, now worth $3 billion, began making strategic moves. She started shorting Thorne Dynamics stock through shell companies. Started feeding anonymous tips to financial journalists about accounting irregularities. Started quietly contacting Garrison's investors and planting seeds of doubt. The company started struggling, slowly at first, then faster. Garrison panicked. He started taking bigger risks, borrowing more money, moving funds around to cover losses. And that's when he started embezzling. Bellamy watched it happen in real time. Watched him dig his own grave deeper and deeper. And then, 6 months ago, she'd made her move. Cordell Capital reached out to Thorne Dynamics with an offer, an investment, a lifeline. Garrison, desperate and drowning, had jumped at it. He'd never asked who B.R. Cordell was. Never did his due diligence. Never thought to connect the dots. Because in his mind, his wife was incapable of this level of strategic thinking. That was his fatal mistake. Bellamy pulled herself out of the memory. She was still sitting in her office. The city lights twinkled outside the window. 10 years. 10 years of playing the long game. 10 years of being invisible. And tonight, she'd finally stepped into the light. Her phone rang. She looked at the screen. Quentin. She answered. Yes. His voice was calm but urgent. We have a problem. What kind of problem? Garrison didn't go home. After security escorted him out of the Gala, he disappeared. We don't know where he is. Bellamy's stomach tightened. Do you think he's a threat? I think he's a man who just lost everything in front of 300 witnesses. Yes, I think he's a threat. What do you recommend? I've already arranged for private security for you. There's a team outside your building right now, and I've alerted the authorities about his potential for violence. Bellamy closed her eyes. She'd planned for almost every contingency, but she hadn't really considered that Garrison might come after her physically. Quentin's voice softened. Bellamy, you humiliated him. Publicly. Men like him don't handle that well. Please, just be careful. I will. Thank you, Quentin. She hung up. For the first time since this whole thing started, she felt a flicker of fear. Not fear of losing. She'd already won. Fear of what a desperate man might do. She stood up and walked through the penthouse. Checked the locks on the doors. The windows. Everything was secure. But she still felt exposed. She went to her bedroom. Changed out of her armor and into comfortable clothes. But she kept her phone close. Sleep didn't come easily. Every sound made her jump. Every creak of the building settling made her heart race. At 3 a.m, she finally gave up. She went back to her office and started working. Emails. Contracts. Plans for the Cordell Fellowship. Work had always been her refuge. The place where she had control. At 6 a.m, Her phone rang again. Harriet this time. Good morning, Harriet said. I wanted to update you. Gemma Lake has been very cooperative. She's provided detailed records of Garrison's financial activities. The SEC is moving forward with their investigation. They'll probably issue an indictment within the week. Good. What about Garrison? Have they found him? Yes. He checked into a hotel downtown last night. He's been trying to call lawyers, but no one will take his case. The video from the gala has gone viral. He's toxic. Bellamy felt a grim satisfaction. Good. There's something else, Harriet said. Her tone shifted. The press wants a statement from you. They want an interview. Forbes, Bloomberg, The Wall Street Journal. Everyone wants to talk to the woman who took down Garrison Thorne. No interviews. Not yet. Bellamy, Harriet said carefully, you've spent 10 years hiding. The world knows who you are now. You need to control the narrative. I don't want to control it. I want to move on. You can't just drop a bomb like last night and disappear. People want to know your story. And if you don't tell it, someone else will. Bellamy sighed. She knew Harriet was right. Let me think about it. Don't think too long. The news cycle moves fast. They hung up. Bellamy stared at her computer screen. Her inbox was still exploding. Interview requests. Speaking opportunities. Book deals. The invisible woman was now the most visible woman in the financial world. She wasn't sure how she felt about that. A soft knock on her office door made her jump. Miss Cordell? A man's voice. It's Victor, your security detail. Everything okay in there? Yes. I'm fine. Just checking. We're right outside if you need anything. Thank you. She heard his footsteps retreat. This was her life now. Security guards. Public scrutiny. Fame she'd never wanted. All she'd wanted was justice. To take back what was stolen. To make Garrison understand that she was never nothing. But now, the world was watching. And they wanted more than just a revenge story. They wanted a hero. Bellamy wasn't sure she was ready to be one. But she also knew she didn't have a choice. She opened a new email. Started typing. To the women who have reached out to me in the past 12 hours. To the women whose ideas were stolen. Whose brilliance was dismissed. Whose voices were silenced. I hear you. And I'm going to help. She paused. Deleted it. Too dramatic. Started again. The Cordell Fellowship will officially launch next month. We will provide funding, legal support, and infrastructure to women in tech whose innovations have been overlooked or stolen. Applications will open on our website. No woman should have to spend 10 years in the shadows the way I did. No woman should have to choose between fighting and surviving. We're going to change that. She read it over. Nodded. Send it to Harriet. This is perfect, Harriet responded within minutes. I'll have our PR team polish it and release it this afternoon. Bellamy leaned back in her chair. The sun was starting to rise. Golden light spilled through the windows. She thought about Garrison, alone in some hotel room. His world in ruins. His reputation destroyed. His future a prison cell. She'd done that. She'd orchestrated every move. And she didn't regret it. But she also didn't feel the triumph she'd expected. Revenge, it turned out, was a cold meal. Satisfying in the moment. Empty afterward. What she really wanted now was to build something. Something positive. Something that would outlast her. The Cordell Fellowship was just the beginning. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You think you've won. But this isn't over. I'll make you pay for what you did. Garrison. Her breath caught. She forwarded the text to Quentin immediately. He called her within seconds. That's a threat. I'm contacting the police right now. And I'm getting a restraining order filed today. Do you think he'd actually hurt me? Bellamy asked. I think he's desperate. And desperate men do stupid things. Please, Bellamy. Stay inside. Let security do their job. I will. But even as she said it, she felt defiant. She'd spent 10 years hiding. She wasn't about to start again. She got dressed. Professional, but comfortable. She called down to Victor. I'm going out. Miss Cordell, I don't think that's wise. I have meetings. I have work. I'm not going to hide because my ex-husband is throwing a tantrum. Then we're coming with you. Fine. An hour later, Bellamy walked out of her building flanked by 2 security guards. The morning was bright and cold. People on the street stared at her. A few pulled out their phones to take pictures. She ignored them. Walked to the Blacktown car waiting at the curb. Slid into the back seat. Where to, Miss Cordell? Thomas asked. The office. Cordell Capital's headquarters was a sleek building in the financial district. 30 floors of glass and steel. Her office was on the top floor. floor-to-ceiling windows. A view that made you feel like you were flying. She rode the elevator up. Her assistant, a sharp young woman named Lauren, was already at her desk. "Miss Cordell." Lauren stood up, eyes wide. "I didn't expect you in today." "Why wouldn't I be?" Because of everything." Lauren gestured vaguely. "The gala. The news. It's everywhere." "I know. But we have work to do." She walked into her office, sat down at her desk, opened her laptop. Lauren appeared in the doorway. "You have 17 meeting requests, and the phone has been ringing nonstop. Clear my schedule for this afternoon. I want to meet with the team. We're launching the Cordell Fellowship ahead of schedule." "Are you sure?" Bellamy looked up, smiled. "I've never been more sure of anything." Lauren nodded. "I'll set it up." By noon, Bellamy was in the conference room with her core team. Quentin, Harriet, her CFO, a brilliant woman named Patricia, her head of operations, Marcus, no relation to her ex-husband, thank God. She stood at the head of the table. "The Cordell Fellowship launches in 2 weeks. I want applications open by Monday. I want a vetting process in place. And I want our first cohort of fellows announced within the month." "That's ambitious," Patricia said. "I don't care. We're doing it." "What's the budget?" Marcus asked. $100 million to start." The room went silent. Patricia blinked. $100 million? "Yes." Bellamy's voice was firm. "We're going to fund 10 women in the first cohort. 10 million each. Full legal support, business infrastructure, mentorship, everything they need to build their companies without interference or theft." Harriet smiled. "It's going to make headlines." "Good. Let it. Let every woman who's ever been told she's not smart enough, not business savvy enough, not CEO material, let them see that there's another way." Quentin leaned forward. "Bellamy, this is incredible. But you need to be prepared. This kind of visibility, this kind of statement, it's going to make you a target." "I'm already a target," she said. "Garrison made sure of that. So I might as well use the spotlight for something good." The team got to work. By the end of the day, the framework was in place. Application portal, vetting criteria, legal templates, everything. Bellamy worked until midnight. When she finally left the office, Victor and his team were waiting. The drive home was quiet. She stared out the window at the city. The lights. The endless motion. Somewhere out there, Garrison was plotting, scheming, trying to find a way to hurt her. But she wasn't afraid anymore. She'd spent 10 years afraid. Afraid he'd discover her plan. Afraid she'd fail. Afraid she'd never get her life back. Now, she had nothing left to fear. She'd already lost everything that mattered. Her trust, her innocence, her belief that love was real. What she'd gained was so much more valuable. Power, freedom, purpose, and the knowledge that she was capable of anything. When the car pulled up to her building, she stepped out into the cold night air, looked up at the penthouse that had been her prison. Tomorrow, she'd start looking for a new place. Somewhere bright. Somewhere that smelled like possibility instead of regret. Tonight, she'd sleep. Really sleep. For the first time in 10 years. Because the war was over. And she'd won. Not because she'd destroyed Garrison Thorne. Anyone could destroy a man like him. He was built on lies. It was only a matter of time before he collapsed. She'd won because she'd built something real. Something that would last long after he was forgotten. She rode the elevator up. Walked into the penthouse. Locked the door behind her. Her phone buzzed one last time. Another text from Garrison. "You haven't won. This isn't over." She deleted it without responding. Because it was over. And she had won. She walked to her bedroom. Changed into pajamas. Climbed into bed. And for the first time in 10 years, Bellamy Cordell slept like someone who had nothing left to prove. The next morning would bring new challenges. Interviews. Legal battles. The hard work of building the fellowship. But tonight, she rested. A warrior who'd finally laid down her sword. Not because the fight was finished, but because she'd become something more than a fighter. She'd become a builder. And that, she realized as sleep finally took her, was the sweetest revenge of all. 3 days after the gala, Bellamy Cordell woke up to find her face on the cover of every major business publication in the country. Forbes, The Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, Fortune. The headlines were variations on the same theme. The Phantom Queen of Wall Street. How Bellamy Cordell built a $4 billion empire in secret. The wife who became a weapon. She sat at her kitchen counter, coffee in hand, scrolling through the articles on her tablet. Some were admiring. Others were critical. A few opinion pieces questioned whether what she'd done was ethical. One headline made her pause. Was Bellamy Cordell's takedown justice or revenge? She clicked on the article. It was written by a male columnist who seemed personally offended by her existence. While Garrison Thorne's actions were certainly questionable, one must ask whether his wife's decade-long plot to destroy him was proportional. Miss Cordell could have pursued legal remedies. Instead, she chose public humiliation and financial ruin. This speaks to a vindictive streak that should concern anyone doing business with Cordell Capital. Bellamy read it twice. Then she closed the tablet. Let them question her. Let them debate her methods. She didn't need their approval. Her phone rang. Quentin. Good morning, she answered. Have you seen the news? Yes. And nothing. People can think whatever they want. Good. Because we have bigger issues. Garrison filed a lawsuit this morning. Bellamy's stomach dropped. Against me? Against you. Against Cordell Capital. Against Harriet and me personally. He's alleging fraud, defamation, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Bellamy laughed. It was a sharp, bitter sound. Emotional distress? He stole my life's work and he's claiming emotional distress? The lawsuit is nonsense. It won't survive a motion to dismiss. But it's going to drag things out. Keep you in the headlines. How long? Months. Maybe a year if he appeals. Bellamy closed her eyes. She'd expected this. Garrison was a fighter. He wasn't going to accept defeat gracefully. Fine, she said. Do what you need to do. There's more. The SEC has officially opened an investigation. They want to interview you. When? Next week. I'll be there with you. Okay. Bellamy, Quentin's voice was gentle. How are you holding up? Honestly, I don't know. I thought I'd feel different. Lighter, maybe. But I just feel tired. You've been fighting for 10 years. You're allowed to be tired. She appreciated that. Thank you, Quentin. Get some rest. This is just beginning. They hung up. Bellamy looked around the penthouse. The silence was oppressive. She'd been alone here for so long, but it had never bothered her before. She'd had her work, her plan, her purpose. Now, the plan was complete, and the silence felt suffocating. She grabbed her coat and called down to Victor. I'm going out. Where to, Miss Cordell? Just a walk. I need air. Victor and another guard, a woman named Rachel, accompanied her. They walked through the streets of the financial district. People recognized her. Some stared. A few pointed. One woman approached her nervously. Miss Cordell? I'm sorry to bother you, but I just wanted to say thank you. Bellamy stopped. For what? The woman was in her 30s, dressed in business casual, clutching a coffee cup. I'm a software engineer. 3 years ago, my boss took credit for a system I designed. I tried to fight it, but I got fired instead. When I saw what you did to your husband, I felt seen for the first time. So thank you. Bellamy felt something crack open in her chest. I'm sorry that happened to you. The woman smiled. Me too. But seeing you win, it gave me hope. She walked away before Bellamy could respond. Victor glanced at her. You okay? Bellamy nodded. Yeah, I think I am. They walked for another hour. 3 more women stopped her, all with similar stories, all thanking her. By the time she got back to the penthouse, something had shifted inside her. She'd spent 10 years focused on one man, one betrayal, one act of revenge. But the response to her story showed her something bigger. She wasn't alone. There were thousands of women out there who had been dismissed, stolen from, silenced. And she had the power to help them. That afternoon, she called an emergency meeting with her team. We're moving up the timeline, she announced. The Cordell Fellowship applications open tomorrow. I want the first cohort announced in 2 weeks. Patricia looked concerned. Bellamy, that's not enough time to properly vet the applications. Then we work around the clock. I don't care. We're doing this now. Why the rush? Harriet asked. Because women are reaching out. Dozens of them. Hundreds. They need help now, not in 6 months. The team exchanged glances. Then Marcus nodded. All right, let's do it. They worked through the night. By morning, the Cordell Fellowship website was live. The application was simple. Tell us your story. Tell us your idea. Tell us how you've been silenced. Within 24 hours, they received over 3,000 applications. Bellamy read every single one. A biotech researcher whose male lab partner published her cancer research under his name. A software developer whose startup co-founder pushed her out and took the company public without her. A mechanical engineer whose design was patented by her supervisor. Story after story after story. Bellamy felt rage on their behalf. But she also felt purpose. This was why she'd survived. This was why she'd fought. Not just for herself. For all of them. On day 3, she read an application that stopped her cold. The applicant's name was Faye Kellerman, 29 years old. Astrophysicist. Her story was brutal. She developed a revolutionary propulsion system for satellites. Lightweight, efficient, game-changing. She'd shown it to her PhD advisor, a renowned professor at Caltech. He'd told her it needed work. Told her to keep refining it. 6 months later, he published a paper on the exact same propulsion system. Under his name. With no mention of her. When she confronted him, he laughed. No one will believe you. I'm a tenured professor. You're a grad student. Who do you think they'll side with? She tried to fight. Filed a complaint with the university. They investigated and found no wrongdoing. The professor had documentation showing he'd been working on propulsion systems for years. Her notebooks, her emails, her evidence, they dismissed it all. She left academia. Broken. Furious. Afraid to trust anyone with her ideas ever again. But she kept working. In secret. Alone. And now she had something even better. A propulsion system that could cut satellite launch costs by 70%. She just needed someone to believe in her. Bellamy read the application 3 times. Then she picked up the phone and called Harriet. I found our first fellow. 2 days later, Bellamy sat in a coffee shop in Pasadena, waiting. Faye Kellerman walked in exactly on time. She was small, barely 5'2", with dark curly hair pulled into a messy ponytail. She wore jeans and a faded Caltech hoodie. She looked young and scared and brilliant. She spotted Bellamy and froze. Miss Cordell? Bellamy stood. Call me Bellamy. Please sit. Faye sat down like she might bolt at any second. I can't believe you're actually here. I thought the email was a scam. It's not a scam. Bellamy smiled. I read your application. Your propulsion system is extraordinary. Faye's eyes widened. You understood it? I have a master's in computer science, but I know enough about engineering to recognize genius when I see it. Faye looked down at her hands. No one's ever called my work genius before. Then you've been talking to the wrong people. Faye laughed. It was a small, broken sound. After what happened with Professor Drennan, I stopped talking to people altogether. I work alone now. In my apartment. I don't trust anyone. I understand that. Bellamy leaned forward. But you can trust me. Why? Faye's voice was sharp. Why should I trust you? You don't know me. You're right. I don't. But I know what it's like to have your work stolen by someone you trusted. I know what it's like to be told you're not smart enough, not business savvy enough, not enough. And I know what it's like to spend years in the shadows, afraid to show the world what you're capable of. Faye stared at her. Then her eyes filled with tears. I thought I was the only one. You're not. Bellamy reached across the table and took her hand. There are thousands of us. And we're going to change that. How? The Cordell Fellowship is offering you $10 million. Full funding. Legal support. A team to help you patent your system, build prototypes, and bring it to market. All we ask in return is that you maintain controlling interest in your company. It stays yours. Faye was crying now. $10 million? Yes. Why me? Because you deserve it. Because your work deserves to see the light. And because I'll be damned if another brilliant woman spends her life hiding in the shadows because some arrogant man decided he deserved her glory. Faye covered her face with her hands. She was shaking. Bellamy waited. Finally, Faye looked up. What do I have to do? Just say yes. Faye wiped her eyes. Yes. God, yes. Bellamy smiled. Welcome to the Cordell Fellowship, Faye. They spent the next 2 hours talking. About the propulsion system. About Faye's plans. About what she wanted to build. By the time they parted ways, Faye looked different. Taller. Lighter. Like someone had taken a weight off her shoulders. Bellamy watched her walk away. And for the first time since the gala, she felt something other than exhaustion. She felt hope. Over the next 2 weeks, Bellamy selected 9 more fellows. A medical device inventor whose partner stole her patent. A data scientist whose algorithm was claimed by her boss. A renewable energy engineer whose solar panel design was taken by her company. A game developer whose concept was stolen by her co-founder. An AI ethicist whose framework was published by a colleague. A biomedical researcher whose technique was credited to her lab director. A cybersecurity expert whose protocol was claimed by her employer. A materials scientist whose polymer was patented by her university. an agricultural tech innovator whose irrigation system was stolen by an investor. 10 women. 10 stories of theft and dismissal. 10 brilliant minds who had been told they weren't enough. Bellamy gave them each $10 million, a legal team, and a promise. No one will ever steal from you again. The press conference announcing the first cohort of Cordell Fellows was held at Cordell Capital headquarters. The room was packed. Journalists. Cameras. The 10 fellows sitting on stage, looking nervous and excited and overwhelmed. Bellamy stood at the podium. She'd never been comfortable with public speaking, but today, she had something to say. For 10 years, I lived in the shadows. I built Cordell Capital in secret because I was afraid. Afraid of being dismissed. Afraid of being stolen from again. Afraid of being told I wasn't enough. She looked at the fellows. But I'm not afraid anymore. And neither are they. She gestured to the women on stage. These 10 women are the future. They are innovators, creators, visionaries. They've been silenced, stolen from, and dismissed. But not anymore. The Cordell Fellowship exists to make sure that brilliant women never have to choose between hiding and fighting. We're giving them a third option. Thriving. The room erupted in applause. One journalist raised her hand. Miss Cordell, some critics have said that the fellowship is less about helping women and more about your personal vendetta against men. How do you respond? Bellamy smiled. I respond by saying that helping women and holding men accountable aren't mutually exclusive. If powerful men are threatened by women getting funding and support, that says more about them than it does about us. More applause. Another journalist. What's next for you personally? Are you planning to step back from Cordell Capital? No. I'm expanding. We're opening a legal defense fund for women fighting IP theft. We're partnering with universities to create transparent patent processes. And we're launching an investigative team to expose academic and corporate theft. She paused. I spent 10 years planning one man's downfall. Now I'm spending the rest of my life making sure women don't have to. The room exploded. Questions shouted from every direction. But Bellamy stepped away from the podium. She'd said everything she needed to say. After the press conference, Bellamy went back to her office. She was exhausted but satisfied. Lauren knocked on the door. Miss Cordell? There's someone here to see you. She's not on your schedule, but she says it's urgent. Who is it? She wouldn't give her name, but she said to tell you she's Garrison Thorne's sister. Bellamy's blood went cold. Send her in. A moment later, a woman walked into her office. She was in her late 30s, with Garrison's same dark hair and sharp features. But where Garrison's eyes were cold and calculating, hers were warm and sad. Miss Cordell, I'm Andrea Thorne, Garrison's younger sister. Bellamy gestured to a chair. Please sit. Andrea sat down, clutching her purse. I'm sorry to come unannounced, but I needed to talk to you. About what? About my brother. Andrea's voice was tight. I need you to know that I don't support what he did. To you. To your work. Any of it. Bellamy studied her. Okay. I've known for years that Garrison was a liar. A cheat. Our whole family knew. But we enabled him because it was easier than confronting him. Andrea looked down. I'm ashamed of that. Why are you telling me this? Because he's planning something. Andrea's eyes met Bellamy's. He called me yesterday. He was manic. Rambling. He said you destroyed his life, and he's going to make you pay. He already threatened me. I have a restraining order. I know. But Garrison doesn't care about restraining orders. He's desperate. And desperate men are dangerous. Bellamy felt a chill run down her spine. What do you think he's going to do? I don't know. But I wanted to warn you. Please, be careful. Andrea stood up, handed Bellamy a piece of paper with a phone number. If you need anything, call me. I mean it. Thank you. Andrea walked to the door. Stopped. Turned back. What you're doing with the fellowship. It's incredible. I wish I'd had the courage to stand up to him the way you did. She left before Bellamy could respond. Bellamy sat in silence for a long moment. Then she called Quentin. We need to increase security. Now. That night, Bellamy couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Andrea's warning. Kept imagining what Garrison might be planning. At 2 in the morning, she gave up and went to her office. Started working on fellowship applications. At 3, her security system alarm went off. She froze. Her heart hammering. Victor's voice crackled through the intercom. Miss Cordell, stay where you are. We have a breach on the ground floor. Bellamy grabbed her phone. Dialed 911. The operator's voice was calm. 911, What's your emergency? Someone's trying to break into my building. What's your location? Bellamy gave the address. Her hands were shaking. Officers are on the way. Stay on the line with me. Bellamy heard shouting from the intercom. Victor's voice. Stop right there. I said stop. Then a voice she recognized. I just want to talk to her. Let me talk to my wife. Garrison. The operator's voice. Ma'am, do you know the intruder? Yes. It's my ex-husband. I have a restraining order against him. Stay away from the windows and doors. Help is 2 minutes away. Bellamy could hear Garrison screaming now. Bellamy. Bellamy, I know you're up there. Come down here. We need to talk. She didn't move. Didn't breathe. You ruined me, Garrison shouted. You destroyed everything. How could you do this? I loved you. Victor's voice. Sir, you need to leave. Now. I'm not leaving until she talks to me. Then we'll have a problem. Bellamy heard a scuffle, shouting, and then sirens. The police arrived in under 2 minutes. They arrested Garrison on the street outside her building. Victor called up to her. He's gone, Miss Cordell. You're safe. But Bellamy didn't feel safe. She felt hunted. The next morning, Quentin met her at the police station. They're charging him with violating the restraining order, attempted breaking and entering, and disorderly conduct. He'll go before a judge this afternoon. Will they give him bail? Probably. But the restraining order will be extended. And this incident will help us in the lawsuit. Bellamy rubbed her face. I'm so tired, Quentin. I know. But you're almost through this. The SEC interview is in 2 days. Garrison's criminal trial starts in a month. Once that's done, he'll be in prison and you can finally move on. She nodded. She wanted to believe him. The SEC interview took place in a sterile conference room in a federal building downtown. 2 agents sat across from Bellamy and Quentin. One was a middle-aged man with gray hair and tired eyes. The other was a younger woman with sharp features and sharper questions. Miss Cordell, the woman began. Can you walk us through your relationship with Thorn Dynamics? Bellamy took a breath. I had no formal relationship with Thorn Dynamics. My ex-husband, Garrison Thorn, founded the company using an algorithm I developed during my graduate studies. Did you give him permission to use this algorithm? No. He took it without my knowledge and presented it to investors as his own work. The male agent leaned forward. Why didn't you report the theft at the time? I was young, grieving my father's death. And by the time I realized what he'd done, the company was already operational. I made the decision to pursue other avenues, such as building Cordell Capital. Yes. The female agent flipped through a file. Cordell Capital engaged in shorting Thorn Dynamics stock over the past 18 months. Some might argue that constitutes market manipulation. Quentin stepped in. Cordell Capital's trades were based on legitimate financial analysis. Thorn Dynamics was over-leveraged and mismanaged. Shorting the stock was a sound investment strategy. A strategy that just happened to target your ex-husband's company? The agent's tone was skeptical. Bellamy met her eyes. I didn't short the stock to hurt Garrison. I shorted it because it was a bad investment. The fact that it happened to be his company is incidental. The interview went on for 3 hours. They asked about the offshore accounts, the embezzlement, the video evidence. Bellamy answered every question calmly, truthfully. At the end, the male agent closed his file. Miss Cordell, I want to be clear. We're not investigating you. We're investigating Garrison Thorn. Your cooperation has been invaluable. Bellamy felt a wave of relief. So I'm not in trouble? No. You're a witness. And a victim. They left the building an hour later. Quentin looked pleased. That went well. Really? Really. They believe you. And more importantly, they have everything they need to put Garrison away for a long time. How long? 10 to 15 years, if he's convicted on all counts. Bellamy stopped walking. 10 to 15 years. Yes. She should feel victorious. Instead, she just felt sad. Garrison Thorn's trial began 4 weeks later. The courtroom was packed. Journalists, investors, curious onlookers. Bellamy sat in the front row, flanked by Quentin and Harriet. Garrison was at the defense table, wearing an ill-fitting suit. He'd lost weight. His face was gaunt. His eyes were hollow. He looked like a ghost. The prosecution's case was airtight. They had the bank statements, the video confessions, Gemma's testimony. Garrison's lawyer tried to argue that he'd been set up, that Bellamy had orchestrated the whole thing to destroy him. But the evidence didn't lie. On the 5th day of the trial, the prosecution called Bellamy to the stand. She walked to the witness box, raised her right hand, and swore to tell the truth. The prosecutor was a sharp woman named Helen Ortiz. She smiled at Bellamy. Miss Cordell, can you tell the court about the algorithm that became the foundation of Thorne Dynamics? Bellamy took a breath. I developed a predictive logistics algorithm during my graduate studies at MIT. It was my thesis project. I showed it to Garrison Thorne, who was my boyfriend at the time, because I trusted him. And what did Mr. Thorne do with this algorithm? He pitched it to investors as his own work and used it to start Thorne Dynamics. Did he have your permission? No. Did he ever credit you? No. How did that make you feel? Bellamy paused. Betrayed. Heartbroken. Invisible. The courtroom was silent. And yet you didn't report the theft at the time. Why? I was young. I didn't think anyone would believe me. And by the time I realized the scope of what he'd done, I felt it was too late. So what did you do instead? I decided to build my own company. To prove to myself that I was capable. That I wasn't nothing. And you succeeded. Yes. The defense attorney, a slick man named Ronald Pierce, stood up for cross-examination. Miss Cordell, isn't it true that you spent 10 years plotting to destroy my client? I spent 10 years building a successful company. A company you used to sabotage Thorne Dynamics. I shorted a stock that was overvalued and mismanaged. That's not sabotage. That's investing. You orchestrated an elaborate scheme to humiliate Mr. Thorne in front of hundreds of people. I revealed the truth in front of hundreds of people. There's a difference. Pierce leaned in. You're a scorned woman seeking revenge. Bellamy's jaw tightened. I'm a woman who took back what was stolen from her. The courtroom erupted in whispers. The judge banged her gavel. Order. Pierce tried a few more angles, but Bellamy didn't break. She answered every question calmly. Truthfully, when she stepped down, she felt lighter. The trial lasted 2 weeks. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty. On all counts. Garrison Thorne was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. Bellamy sat in the courtroom and watched them take him away in handcuffs. He looked at her one last time. His eyes were full of hate. She looked back. Her eyes were empty. She felt nothing for him anymore. Not anger. Not pity. Nothing. He was a chapter of her life that was finally closed. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed her. Miss Cordell, how do you feel about the verdict? I feel that justice was served. Do you have any regrets? She paused. Thought about it. No, I don't. What's next for you? She smiled. Building. Creating. Helping other women do the same. She walked to the car. Victor opened the door. She slid into the back seat. As they pulled away, she looked out the window at the courthouse. At the place where Garrison Thorne's life had officially ended. And she felt free. 3 months later, Bellamy stood in a bright, modern office space in Austin, Texas. She'd left Los Angeles. Too many memories. Too much history. Austin felt like a fresh start. Cordell Capital's new headquarters was beautiful. Open. Filled with light. The Cordell Fellowship had grown. They'd funded 50 women so far. 50 brilliant minds who were now building companies, filing patents, changing the world. Faye Kellerman's propulsion system was in beta testing with NASA. Another fellow had launched a medical device that was saving lives. Another had started a renewable energy company that was revolutionizing solar panels. Bellamy walked through the office, greeting her team. Everyone was smiling, energized, purposeful. This was what she'd built. Not revenge, not destruction, hope. Her assistant, a young woman named Priya, appeared. Miss Cordell, you have a visitor. Who? She says her name is Jordan Hale. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's important. Send her in. A moment later, a woman walked into Bellamy's office. She was in her mid-20s, with red hair and freckles. She looked nervous. Miss Cordell, I'm so sorry to just show up like this. But I read about the Cordell Fellowship, and I needed to meet you. Bellamy gestured to a chair. Please sit. Tell me your story. Jordan sat down. Took a breath. I'm a composer. I write film scores. 2 years ago, I was hired to score an independent film. I poured everything into it. It was the best work I'd ever done. What happened? The director took my compositions and gave them to a male composer. Told him to clean them up. The film premiered with my music, but the other guy's name in the credits. Bellamy felt the familiar rage. Did you fight it? I tried. But I'd signed a contract that gave the director creative control. I couldn't prove the work was originally mine. So I walked away. Haven't composed anything since. Why not? Because I'm afraid. Afraid it'll happen again. Bellamy leaned forward. Jordan, I can't fund you through the fellowship. Music isn't our focus. But I can connect you with lawyers who specialize in intellectual property. And I can tell you this. Don't let fear stop you from creating. The world needs your music. Jordan's eyes filled with tears. You really think so? I know so. They talked for an hour. Bellamy gave her contacts, resources, encouragement. When Jordan left, she looked different, lighter. Bellamy watched her go and smiled. This was her life now. Not destroying men who'd wronged her, but building up women who'd been wronged. It was better. So much better. That evening, Bellamy walked through a park near her new apartment. The sun was setting. The air was warm. Her phone buzzed. A text from Faye. Just got the call from NASA. They want to move forward with the propulsion system. This is happening. Thank you for believing in me. Bellamy smiled. Typed back. I always believed in you. Now go change the world. She put her phone away and kept walking. For the first time in her adult life, she wasn't planning, wasn't scheming, wasn't preparing for battle. She was just living, and it felt incredible. A woman jogged past her, stopped, turned back. Bellamy Cordell? Bellamy nodded. Yes. The woman was out of breath, but smiling. I just wanted to say thank you. I'm a software engineer. I applied to the fellowship. Didn't get in. But just knowing it exists, knowing someone is fighting for us, it gave me the courage to start my own company. That's wonderful. No, thank you. You changed my life without even knowing it. She jogged away before Bellamy could respond. Bellamy stood in the park, the sun setting behind her, and felt something she hadn't felt in a very long time. Peace. She'd spent 10 years at war. With Garrison. With herself. With the world. Now, the war was over. And she'd won. Not because she'd destroyed her enemy, but because she'd built something that would outlive him. Outlive her. The Cordell Fellowship would help thousands of women. Tens of thousands. Maybe more. That was her legacy. Not revenge. Revolution. She walked home as the stars started to appear. The night was clear. Beautiful. She thought about Garrison. Locked in a prison cell. His empire in ruins. His name a cautionary tale. She didn't feel sorry for him. But she didn't feel triumphant either. She just felt done. He was part of her past. A painful part. But just a part. Her future was something else entirely. When she got home, she made tea. Sat on her balcony. Looked out at the city. Tomorrow, she'd wake up and keep building. Keep helping. Keep creating. But tonight, she rested. A woman who had finally laid down her sword. Not because the fight was over, but because she'd realized the best way to fight wasn't with weapons. It was with hope. 6 months later, Bellamy received an email that made her pause. It was from Andrea Thorne, Garrison's sister. Dear Bellamy, I wanted to update you. Garrison is in prison, as you know. I visited him last week. He asked about you. I told him I had no idea how you were doing. He said, and I quote, tell her she won. I hope that brings you some closure. For what it's worth, I think what you're doing with the fellowship is extraordinary. You took your pain and turned it into purpose. That's true strength. Wishing you all the best, Andrea. Bellamy read the email twice. Then she archived it. She didn't need Garrison's acknowledgement. Didn't need his surrender. She'd already moved on. The Cordell Fellowship's 1-year anniversary gala was held in a beautiful venue in downtown Austin. 200 guests. 50 fellows. Investors. Journalists. Supporters. Bellamy stood at the podium, looking out at the crowd. 1 year ago, I stepped out of the shadows. I revealed a truth that I'd been hiding for a decade. That I was not the passive, quiet woman my ex-husband believed I was. I was a builder. A creator. A force. Applause. But the real revelation wasn't about me. It was about all of us. She gestured to the fellows in the audience. These women are the future. They've been dismissed, stolen from, silenced. But they refused to disappear. They kept creating, kept innovating, kept fighting. She paused. The Cordell Fellowship exists to make sure they don't have to fight alone. In the past year, we've funded 50 women. We've helped file over 100 patents. We've launched 30 companies. And we're just getting started. The room erupted in applause. Bellamy smiled. To everyone who's been told you're not enough, you are. To everyone who's been stolen from, you will rise. To everyone who's been silenced, your voice matters. Keep building. Keep creating. Keep fighting. And know that you're not alone. The applause was deafening. After the gala, Bellamy stood on the balcony of the venue, looking out at the Austin skyline. Faye joined her. Hell of a night. Yeah. Bellamy smiled. It was. You know, a year ago, I was working alone in my apartment. Terrified. Broken. Now I have a team of 15 people and a contract with NASA. She looked at Bellamy. You did that. No. You did that. I just gave you the resources. You gave me hope. That's bigger than money. Bellamy felt her throat tighten. Thank you, Faye. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the city lights. Finally, Faye spoke. Do you ever think about him? Your ex-husband? Sometimes. Do you regret what you did? Bellamy thought about it. No. I regret trusting him in the first place. But taking him down? Building all of this? She gestured to the Gala inside. No regrets. Good. Faye smiled. Because you're a hero to a lot of women. I'm not a hero. I'm just someone who got tired of being invisible. That's what makes you a hero. Faye went back inside. Bellamy stayed on the balcony a little longer. She thought about the woman she used to be. The woman who had showed Garrison her notebook because she loved him. That woman was gone. She'd been replaced by someone stronger, wiser, more careful, but also more hopeful. Because she'd learned that the best revenge wasn't destruction. It was creation. And she was just getting started. Now, let me stop right here because I need to talk to you about something important. This story, Bellamy Cordell's story, it's not just about one woman taking down one man. It's about something much bigger. It's about every person who's ever been underestimated. Every person who's been told they're not smart enough, not capable enough, not enough. Bellamy didn't just win because she destroyed Garrison Thorne. She won because she built something that mattered. Something that will help people long after she's gone. That's the real lesson here. Revenge is empty. But purpose? Purpose lasts forever. So here's what I want you to take away from this story. If someone steals from you, if someone dismisses you, if someone tries to make you feel small, don't shrink. Don't hide. Build something so big, so bright, so undeniable that they can't ignore you. And then, keep building. Not for them, for you, and for everyone who comes after you. If this story resonated with you, if Bellamy's journey spoke to something in your soul, I need you to do something for me right now. Hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's been dismissed. Someone who's been told they're not enough. Because stories like this, they change lives. And drop a comment. Tell me what you think. Was Bellamy's takedown justified? Would you have done the same thing? Or would you have handled it differently? And don't forget to tell me where you're watching from, or just say I'm with you, Mr. Hearthline. I want to hear from you. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Mr. Hearthline Stories brings you the most compelling, emotional, justice-filled tales on YouTube. We're building a community here. A community of people who believe that the underestimated ones are the ones you should fear most. So subscribe, ring that bell, and join us, because we're just getting started. Now, let me bring this story home. 2 years after the Gala. 2 years after Garrison Thorne's empire fell. Bellamy Cordell sat in her office in Austin. Outside her window, the city was alive, growing, thriving, just like her. The Cordell Fellowship had expanded to 10 countries. They'd funded over 300 women, created thousands of jobs, changed countless lives. Bellamy's personal life had changed too. She'd started dating again, carefully, slowly. A kind, brilliant woman named Dr. Simone Reeves, a neuroscientist who saw Bellamy for who she really was. Not a victim, not a villain, just a woman who'd survived and decided to help others do the same. They were taking it slow, but it felt real. It felt safe. One afternoon, Priya knocked on her door. Miss Cordell, there's a call for you. It's from the federal prison in Lompoc. Bellamy's blood went cold. Garrison, do you want me to decline it? Bellamy hesitated, then shook her head. No, I'll take it. She picked up the phone. This is Bellamy Cordell. A pause. Then Garrison's voice. Thin. Tired. Bellamy. What do you want, Garrison? I wanted to apologize. She almost laughed. You wanted to apologize? Yes. I've had a lot of time to think. About what I did. What I took from you. I was wrong. I know that now. Bellamy was silent. I know you probably don't believe me, he continued. But I am sorry. For everything. Okay. Okay. That's all you have to say. What do you want me to say, Garrison? That I forgive you? That we're good now? I thought maybe we could talk. Really talk. We are talking. And I've heard everything I need to hear. Bellamy, please. I've lost everything. My company. My freedom. My life. The least you could do is. The least I could do? Bellamy's voice turned cold. Garrison, you stole my life's work. You built an empire on my genius and then spent 10 years telling me I was stupid. You cheated on me, mocked me, tried to make sure I'd get nothing in the divorce. And now you want me to feel sorry for you? I just want you to understand. I understand perfectly. You're not sorry you hurt me. You're sorry you got caught. There's a difference. That's not fair. Fair. She laughed. It was a hard, bitter sound. You want to talk about fair? You're in prison for 12 years. I spent 10 years in a prison of your making. So forgive me if I don't feel like we're even. Bellamy, I loved you. No, you didn't. You loved what I could give you. And when you'd taken everything, you threw me away. That's not love. That's theft. Silence on the other end. I'm going to hang up now, Bellamy said. And I don't want you to call again. I've moved on. I suggest you do the same. She hung up before he could respond. Priya appeared in the doorway. Are you okay? Bellamy took a breath. Yeah, I am. And she meant it. Garrison was her past. A painful, ugly past. But just the past. Her future was bright. Full. Purposeful. She went back to work. That evening, she met Simone for dinner. They sat at a small Italian restaurant, sharing pasta and wine and easy conversation. How was your day? Simone asked. Interesting. Garrison called. Simone's eyes widened. What did he want? To apologize, apparently. And I told him I'd moved on. Good. Simone reached across the table and took her hand. You deserve to move on. You deserve to be happy. Bellamy smiled. I am happy. And she was. For the first time in her adult life, she wasn't defined by what had been done to her. She was defined by what she'd built. That night, lying in bed, Bellamy thought about the notebook. The one Garrison had stolen all those years ago. It was in a safe now. In a museum, actually. The Smithsonian had asked to display it as part of an exhibit on women in tech. Her algorithm. Her work. Finally recognized. It had taken 10 years. A public takedown. A trial. A prison sentence. But she'd gotten it back. Not just the algorithm. Herself. She'd spent so long being invisible. Being dismissed. Being nothing. Now, she was everything. And that, she thought as she drifted off to sleep, was the sweetest revenge of all. 5 years after the gala, Bellamy Cordell stood on a stage at a TED conference in Vancouver. 10,000 people in the audience. Millions watching online. She looked out at the sea of faces and smiled. My name is Bellamy Cordell, she began. And for 10 years, I was invisible. She told her story. The theft. The betrayal. The decade of planning. The takedown. The fellowship. She spoke for 18 minutes. The audience was silent. Transfixed. When she finished, the applause was thunderous. A standing ovation that went on for 5 minutes. Afterward, dozens of women approached her, thanking her, sharing their stories, asking for advice. One woman, in her 60s, took Bellamy's hands. I'm a retired engineer. 40 years ago, my boss took credit for a bridge design I created. I never fought it. I just accepted it. But watching you fight, it healed something in me. Thank you. Bellamy hugged her. I'm so sorry that happened to you. Don't be sorry. Be proud. You're changing the world. Bellamy left the conference feeling full, grateful, purposeful. This was her life now. Speaking, teaching, helping, building. And she loved it. 10 years after the gala, Bellamy Cordell stood in a cemetery in Seattle. Her father's grave. She hadn't been here in years. But today felt like the right day. She knelt down, placed flowers on the headstone. Hi, Dad, she said softly. I'm sorry it took me so long to visit. I've been busy. She smiled. Building an empire. Just like you always said I would. The wind rustled through the trees. It felt like an answer. I took back what was stolen from me, she continued. And then I built something even bigger. Something that's helping people. I think you'd be proud. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I miss you. Every day. But I'm okay. I'm more than okay. I'm happy. She stood up, wiped her eyes. As she walked back to her car, she felt lighter. She'd spent so much of her life carrying the weight of what had been done to her. Now, she was ready to let it go. Not to forget, but to move forward. 15 years after the gala, Bellamy Cordell, now 54 years old, sat in her home office in Seattle. She'd moved back to her hometown 5 years ago. Wanted to be close to her roots. The Cordell Fellowship was now a global organization. They'd funded over 2,000 women in 30 countries. Created tens of thousands of jobs. Changed millions of lives. Bellamy had stepped back from day-to-day operations. She was now the chairman of the board. Advisory. Supportive. but no longer in the trenches. She spent her time writing, speaking, mentoring, and spending time with Simone. They'd gotten married 3 years ago. Small ceremony. Just close friends and family. It was the happiest Bellamy had ever been. One afternoon, she received an email from an unknown sender. She almost deleted it, but something made her open it. Dear Miss Cordell, my name is Ethan Thorne. I'm Garrison Thorne's son. I'm writing to you because I want you to know that I don't blame you for what happened to my father. He made his choices. He faced the consequences. I've spent my whole life cleaning up his messes. But I want to thank you, because watching his downfall taught me who I don't want to be. I'm a software engineer now. I create things. I don't steal them. And I credit the people I work with. I learned that from you. Thank you for being an example of what real strength looks like. Respectfully, Ethan. Bellamy read the email 3 times. Then she wrote back, Dear Ethan, thank you for your kind words. I'm sorry you had to witness your father's mistakes, but I'm proud of the man you've become. Keep creating. Keep crediting. Keep being better. The world needs more people like you. Wishing you all the best, Bellamy. She hit send. And for the first time since this whole thing started, she felt true closure. Garrison's legacy was failure, theft, ruin. Her legacy was hope, creation, change. And his son, a person she'd never met, had chosen her path over his father's. That was the ultimate victory. That evening, she and Simone sat on their porch, watching the sunset. You're quiet tonight, Simone said. Just thinking. About what? About how far I've come. 25 years ago, I was a girl with a notebook and a dream. 15 years ago, I was a woman at war. Now I'm just me, and it feels good. Simone kissed her. You're extraordinary, you know that? I'm just someone who refused to stay invisible. That's what makes you extraordinary. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sky turn from gold to pink to purple. Bellamy thought about Garrison. He'd been released from prison 2 years ago. She'd heard he was working at a car wash in Nevada, living in a studio apartment. Alone. She didn't feel pity. She didn't feel satisfaction. She just felt indifferent. He was a stranger now. A cautionary tale. She was a legend. And that was enough. So let me bring this home for you. This is the story of Bellamy Cordell. A woman who was stolen from, dismissed, made invisible. But she didn't stay invisible. She built an empire in the shadows. She planned. She waited. And when the time was right, she stepped into the light and took back everything that was hers. But more than that, she built something that mattered. Something that will outlive her. Something that's changing the world. That's the lesson here. You can't control what people do to you. But you can control what you do next. You can shrink. Or you can build. You can hide. Or you can rise. You can let them win. Or you can become unstoppable. Bellamy Cordell chose to rise. And in doing so, she didn't just save herself. She saved thousands of other women. That's not revenge. That's revolution. So here's my question for you. What are you building? What empire are you creating in the shadows? What injustice are you turning into purpose? Because the world doesn't need more victims. It needs more Bellamys. If this story moved you, inspired you, fired you up, then I need you to do something right now. Hit that like button. Smash it. Let the algorithm know that stories like this matter. Share this video. Send it to someone who's been dismissed. Someone who's been told they're not enough. Someone who needs to know that being underestimated is not a weakness. It's a weapon. And drop a comment. Tell me your story. Tell me how you're rising. Tell me where you're watching from, or just say I'm with you, Mr. Hearthline. And if you're not subscribed, what are you waiting for? This is Mr. Hearthline Stories, where we tell tales of justice, karma, and people who refuse to be broken. Subscribe. Ring that bell. Join the revolution. Because stories like Bellamy's, they're not just entertainment. They're fuel. They're proof that you can survive anything. That you can rise from the ashes. That you can turn your pain into power. So go out there and build something beautiful. Something that scares the people who underestimated you. Something that changes the world. And remember, the quiet ones, the invisible ones, the ones you dismiss, they're the ones you should fear the most. This is Mr. Hearthline, reminding you that revenge is a dish best served with a side of empire building. I'll see you in the next story. Peace.